My name is Sarah White, and I'm an engineer with Unified Government in the Stormwater Program. And we're here today at one of our open houses for our stormwater rate transition study. And we'll be walking you through our boards, telling you about the study, our stormwater program, and what those rates would look like. So first off, Carla, tell you a little bit about what our stormwater program is. So, our mission of our stormwater program is to minimizing our flooding risks throughout the city and county, protecting properties, protecting our infrastructure, and protecting our other assets. We're also have environmental compliance responsibilities, so reducing our stormwater pollution that goes into our lakes, our creeks, our rivers, as well as keeping our community safe and healthy with safe water. Our mission is to sustainably manage our stormwater infrastructure, and this is the one that really plays a part in this rate study, is creating a sustainable system.
So that part of that system is like the storm drains that are along the street.
Right, it includes our pipes and our inlets, but it also includes other aspects, our natural drainage.
Okay.
As well. So what our services to you are is that we do O&M, operations and maintenance, on a very complex drainage system throughout the entire county. We also, not only do we put in new, replace failing infrastructure, we do look at our natural drainage system and how to protect that and comply with our environmental compliance. Okay. So what is our current situation? So as we talked about, our main things that we do in our stormwater program is to reduce our flooding risk, to improve our water quality in our waterways, and to maintain and enhance our drainage system. And we have 160 square miles of a service area. So very large service area with a lot of different things. And as you know, everyone who gets a BPU bill currently pays $4.50 for a stormwater fee.
Okay.
This is a fee, it's not a tax. And so this is something that every customer who gets that bill pays into our stormwater fund. This is the bill that Mr. Smith in a 2-bedroom house pays, is the same that a big box store pays, is $4.50. So this goes into our stormwater utility fund, and right now we generate $3.4 million a year to cover the cost of our whole stormwater program. Right. Which $3.4 million may sound like a lot, but just one of the projects that we recently did, which is in about a 3-block radius stormwater enhancement project and repair, cost close to $4 million.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
So to save up enough funds to do a project like that takes a while, and we feel that the community of Kansas City, Kansas deserves a better program.
I see this graph has that residential plays 93% of that.
Yes.
Is it really that much residential versus non-residential, and they're only paying 7%?
Right, so since everyone pays a flat fee, this shows that the bills that go out from BPU, out of those customers, which I believe it's between 55,000 and 60,000 customers that get a bill, 93% of that is residential.
Okay.
So yes, everyone's paying the same, so only 7% is coming from your non-residential, so your businesses, your commercial, your industries that are a lot larger than a 2-bedroom house.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So what our study is focused on is how can we create an equitable or a fair solution in receiving stormwater fees so it's proportional to what your footprint is. what your hard surface footprint is. So,
So you have 3.4 million, but how much do you need?
well, we will talk about that in this next slide. But yes, so 3.4, like I said, sounds like a lot, but right now it does not cover what we need just to do our basic services.
Okay,
So part of our study was to look at our long-term financial needs. So as you see here, this is currently how we divide up our budget. It's between operations and maintenance of our current system. It's capital outlay, which is our bigger projects. And then it's to pay off the projects that we've already done that were done with debt money.
okay,
So, 74% of our total costs go toward building and maintaining our infrastructure.
okay,
So then, the chart down here shows, so currently in 2018, the total amount of money we spent on stormwater, which includes our environmental compliance, fixing our current system, any emergencies that come up, and just our normal operations and maintenance, inlet cleaning, storm debris cleaning in creeks, etc., is over 5.5 million. And as we said, we only bring in 3.4 million.
okay,
So we're not able to sustain our operation, how it currently is. And that difference, we have to make up through other fund sources that take away from other programs. So what we're looking at is what we actually need to run our stormwater program. And so one of the things we looked at for 2020 and beyond is the program that an enhanced stormwater program, because we don't feel that we are providing the best service to the community on their stormwater needs. So adding in some additional services, doing some preventative maintenance so we don't end up in an emergency situation, that has raised what it's gonna cost to run our program. And so this shows the projected cost of our program.
okay.
So,
That's a lot of money.
yeah. So the other thing that a lot of our community has experienced is flooding issues, drainage issues in their neighborhoods, at their businesses, on their way to work, etc. So part of the study also included a parallel path study looking at our master plan for our stormwater improvements throughout the county. And these were highlighted as our top projects or top areas that had concerns. Just with known flooding concerns, we had over 80 problem locations. And you probably know where some of those are.
Yeah.
They're
Like
the
Southwest
Argentine,
Boulevard and-
yes, Argentine, Turkey Creek, Armourdale area. Jersey Creek has a lot of flooding issues. And they've been deferred over the past or put off over the past because they're such a big, complex problem, and we're looking at quite a bit of money to solve them, that we're not able to attack them until we get those fund sources.
Okay,
So there's currently, in our county, we have 50 watersheds. It's quite a bit of watersheds, and it's because we're surrounded by Kansas River, Missouri River. So we narrowed those down to the top 8 watersheds and looked at those projects and put together a 5-year capital improvement plan. And so this capital improvement plan looks at flood reduction in these areas, and we're looking at $51 million.
okay,
So, if you remember, the 3.4 that we're currently bringing in, to get up to 51 million is going to take a very long time. So we need to look at ways to bring in more money.
okay,
The other thing we would like to enhance with our program is operations and maintenance. there's a lot of deferred maintenance that happens because of our limited budget. If an emergency comes up, oftentimes that takes away from doing proactive maintenance. So you run the risk of always following after emergencies and not able to fix the problem before it becomes an emergency.
So these watersheds are in the older part of town, so, I mean, I guess the pipes and the roads and everything is a lot older in
Yes.
that part of town.
Yes, and a lot
As
of
well as, rather than out by the legends where everything is much newer.
right. So a lot of the pipes, have been in the town or been in the ground for over 100 years.
Oh my, that's a long time.
And lifespan of them is not 100 years. So we run the risk of having pipes collapse, having cracks, and different things. So, or the pipes were not put into today's standards, so they're undersized. And we've had more development that has happened in this area, so we need to upgrade the system.
So it's kind of like living and taking care of a much older house that's 50 to 100 years old versus a brand new house.
Right.
You got a lot more maintenance associated with that.
So for example, one of the projects that they pointed out on our master plan is one we feel is necessary to do in the next 5 years is Armourdale, addressing some issues in Armourdale. And so one of the things we'd like to point out is this project, just a rough estimation, we're looking at a $16 million project. And that's just in one location. So as you can see, these projects are very expensive.
Okay.
So the next part of this is once we know our needs, how are we going to generate enough funds to take care of these needs? And so we brought in Black & Veatch as a consultant to do a rate study. And one of the things that they did is they did market research throughout the US to look at what other communities are doing, as well as just here in the metro area, what is everyone else doing? And what it is that your fee is based on your impervious area, which will go a little bit more into impervious area, but it's basically your hard surfaces,
Okay.
so your roofs and your driveways. So then there wouldn't be a flat fee. Not everyone will be paying the same amount. So if you have a larger industrial complex, you're gonna pay more than a single family resident because you have more area than a smaller house.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
this is a way to calculate your runoff is by looking at your hard surface, and then it's a way that we can do a fair and equitable cost recovery to generate these funds.
Okay.
So what is impervious area based fees? So impervious area is the hard surfaces on your property. So it's your roofs, driveways, sidewalks, parking lots, anything that doesn't allow the water to soak back into the ground. So when rain falls and it's not absorbed by the ground or collected by the trees, and it hits this hard surface, it runs off. And that is called stormwater runoff. So the more hard surface that you have on your property, the more runoff you will produce. So this is a way to calculate your stormwater production from your property. Okay. Much like on your utility bill, you have a charge for how much water you've used or how much wastewater you've produced. This is a way to calculate how much stormwater you produce from your property.
That makes sense.
So then we calculate an equivalent stormwater unit. So this is a basic unit to define what the rate would be. So we took the median of residential properties of their impervious area, calculated impervious area, to find out what one ESU would be. And in our community, one ESU is equivalent to 2,420 square feet of impervious area.
Okay.
So from that, we can calculate based on your impervious area, we can calculate what that stormwater fee should be based on the one ESU. So how did we determine your impervious area on your property? Well, we evaluated every parcel in Kansas City and using our GIS data and using flyover data that captures the hard surface.
Okay.
So this data that we currently have is from 2012. However, we just had a new data set. They just got done flying over the whole county to get this new information, and we just received that data. So anything moving forward will be calculated with that new data. So for the residential, we're looking at a tier approach. For non-residential, we'll look at each individual parcel and how much hard surface they have compared to what the ESU rating would be. For undeveloped property, that would be property that does not have a structure on it. So this could be agriculture land, this could be just natural, never been touched, forest or prairie. This falls under the undeveloped property and it has a different calculation.
So for my house, I own the parcel that has a house on it, and I also own the parcel next door to make a bigger yard. So how would that be calculated?
Well, currently, you're paying $4.50
Okay.
for your house, because it comes in with your bill. So the residential portion of the residential parcel, you would still get that BPU bill with your stormwater fee.
Right.
For the land adjacent to yours, that's a different parcel, it does not have a structure on it, you would get a stormwater only bill.
Okay.
And that is still in the works. We'll be determining how we'll be billing that, if that's a yearly charge or if that's a monthly charge.
Okay.
But that will be two separate ones.
Okay.
So one of the things that what the percent using impervious area allows us to do is to recover fees based on your hard surface, which is equivalent to what you're producing. Okay, so before our current situation, we showed you 93% comes from residents, 7% comes from non-residential. So it's not a fair solution. If you look at what is currently in our community for impervious area, 36% of our impervious area is from residential parcels. So that would be the houses and the driveways, maybe some patios, comes from residential. 64% of that comes from our non-residential. And as you can picture, the large industries and large commercial have the large parking lots, have a lot more hard surfaces than a house does.
Yeah, so the residentials are paying 93% for only 36% of the hard surfaces
Right.
in the county. That is unbalanced.
Right, so then if you go to it based on your hard surface calculations, then it becomes 39% of the revenue that we'll bring in will be from residents. 61% of that will be from the non-residential. So as you can see, this equals the amount of hard surface.
It's closer.
It's closer and it makes more sense on how we're recovering those fees.
Yeah, so those businesses can be paying their fair share.
And one important thing to point out throughout this whole thing is that all properties all parcels will pay a stormwater fee. So there will,
Really?
yeah, so there will not be properties that are exempt. So that includes unified government, public property that we have will be getting a bill, and we'll be paying that bill. This includes, since it's not a tax, there's not tax exempt properties. So every property will pay a stormwater.
So my church is gonna have to pay.
Yes, so church will have to pay, schools will have to pay, BPU will have to pay, any parcel, or every parcel in Kansas City, Kansas will have to pay.
Okay.
Bonner Springs and Edwardsville and Lake Quivira have their own stormwater program. So our services do not cover them, we cover Kansas City, Kansas.
And does that, but this applies to the unincorporated areas in the county as well?
Right, and
Okay.
those are all, Kansas City, Kansas at this
Okay.
time. Mhm. So, that's an important thing to point out, is that no property is exempt.
Okay.
So let's look at what this fee looks like. So this would be something that would come into effect January 1 of 2020.
Okay, so a little bit of time.
Little bit of time, to get everything prepared. So residential, you know, as we say, we have, 93% of our bills that we send out for BPU are residential customers. So for residential customers, we're looking at a tiered approach. So we had said that ESU is the 2,420. So we created tier 2 around that. That's one ESU, and as you can see here, 76% of the residential properties fall in tier 2.
Okay.
So tier 2 is gonna see a slight increase from 450 to 590.
And that's per month?
This is, yes, per
Per
month
month,
on your
okay.
monthly fee.
Okay.
Tier 1 is properties that are 0 to 1,208 square feet, and they will see a decrease. Tier 3 and 4 will see an increase as well.
So my neighbor has a similar sized house, but a much longer driveway, just because their house sits back further, will probably be paying a little bit more than me.
They might fall into a different tier,
Okay.
but they might not. This tier is very large, and 76% of residents
Okay.
will fall under tier 2. So for non-residential, we look at each parcel's exact impervious area that is calculated using our GIS and tax assessor's data. So that calculation is done by taking the impervious area of the parcel divided by that ESU median
Okay.
percent of square footage, and that gives you how many ESUs that property is. So that gets multiplied by what one ESU is, and that shows you their monthly charge.
Okay, so all of the big apartment complexes that are being built out by the Legends, are they in the residential,
No,
or are they in the non-residential category?
they're in the non-residential. Anything less than 4 units falls under the residential.
Okay, so some of those neighborhoods that just have duplexes would be
Duplexes fall in the residential.
Okay.
The large apartment complexes would fall in the non-residential. And during our phase 2, we would work out the details of how those would get their charges, because it often depends on how they get their utility bills.
Okay.
If it's per unit or if it's one big bill.
Okay.
Divided up. So for undeveloped land, that, like I said, that'd be land that does not have a structure on it. So we used a different calculation on that, because a lot of that water is going to be infiltrated and absorbed into the ground or collected by trees. However, no parcel has 0 stormwater coming off of it. And even if it does, there's still roads to get to that parcel that we need to help maintain our system. So that's why, every parcel will be charged. And that calculation is a little bit different, but one thing to point out is the max for the undeveloped land would be $21.40, would be the max charge that they would get. No
Okay,
matter
so
what size.
my uncle, who's still a farmer in the western part of the county, so some of his land would still
Right,
be charged on this. Okay.
right, and then the parcel that you have next to your property that does not have a structure on it would then have this.
Okay,
So the max you would pay on that one is $21.40 per month. Okay?
all right.
So what are our next steps? So we're currently finishing up phase one. Phase one was to figure out what this stormwater fee would look like using impervious area as a basis for the fee. And the final part of this phase one is to have community outreach. And that's why we're having these open houses and these targeted meetings to get feedback from the residents, from the businesses, in order to refine our program. What will we, so those will be going on here in December and in January.
Okay.
We will then be presenting the information that we gather from these, as well as alternatives that we come up with to the commission. And then it will go to vote by the commission.
Okay.
After the vote comes in, then we will, throughout 2019, is really looking at how are we going to implement this. We're going to set up the projects we're going to do over the next 5 years in our CMIP. We're going to develop.
What's a CMIP? Must be
It is
capital.
capital and maintenance improvement program.
Okay.
So it's our budget for the
Okay, your
next 5
budget for
years.
new projects and stuff. Okay, that makes sense.
We're going to develop a stormwater credit program.
Oh,
So
really?
the stormwater credit program is for the non-residential customers, looking at how they can reduce the amount of hard surfaces on their properties.
Okay.
So that might be putting in some extra vegetation instead of having a bunch of parking lot. They might get rid of some of their parking lot and have some more natural areas that would reduce that amount of hard surfaces.
Yeah, so my church has a rain garden that collects the stormwater that comes off the parking lot, so that would be something like that.
That would be something like that, and then
Okay.
they would apply for a stormwater credit program and have a reduction on their bill.
Okay,
So there is a chance for that. We're also going to be looking at not only what big projects we're doing, but look at our current system and rank all of them, look at what shape they're in, and create a plan on how we're going to proactively fix things before they become an emergency. So then, during that time, we'll also develop the billing procedure, different things like that. And we'll have continued outreach so that people are prepared. Then 2020 would start the billing using the impervious fee-based.
okay,
And then that fund will start generating our revenue to be able to do some of our projects. We also have additional open houses coming up, so if you want to tell your friends, your neighbors, business owners that you know, we do have additional open houses coming up.
okay, thank you. This does seem like a much more fair solution.
Yes, and I know no one likes to hear increases, but to be able to provide the services that we know everyone deserves, we have to generate that revenue.
Well, it's shifting the burden off of the individual homeowner
Right.
and balancing it out, spreading it out amongst everyone within the unified government. So that makes sense.
And we do have a website set up that contains all of this information. It contains some frequently asked questions about our proposed fee increase that you can get on anytime, look at it, And if you wanna pass that along to other people who might have questions, you can send them to the website. You can also have them, email our Stormwater Program. We have an email or phone number that's listed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.